Hi, welcome back to Elektro Vox. I am currently joined by Daniel, who is known as Glass Apple Bonzai. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you.
So, for those who haven't heard your music before, please describe yourself.
Sort of current incarnation is like a good combination of dark wave and like sort of traditional new wave, in the sense that I play bass guitar and sing. There's guitar work on the songs now, which was not something that was regularly there for the last number of albums. We started as it's me. I started it a side project from my old band, which was an electro-industrial band, and I just wanted to do synth pop, like pretty straightforward, early '80s kind of stuff, and OMD, early Depeche Mode, that kind of stuff, and some other bands as well. A couple of Canadian bands like Rational Youth and Men Without Hats, and so I did that for the first album. But then at the time, what became known as synthwave was becoming considerably more popular. So obviously I wanted in on that. So our second album, Night Maze, was considerably more of that vein, including the artwork was done up with that sort of 80s neon look to everything. But it's kind of became old hat very quickly. I have a pretty short span of attention when it comes to like the stuff that I work on. It's all pretty similar. Like when you look at the albums over the span of time, you can see the progression, but I'll latch onto something for a little bit and then be like, no, it's boring now, so let's do something else. So then our third album was like a sort of loose concept album based on the story of Faust, and it was essentially an excuse for me to just sample a lot of movies about the devil, and also taking from so in North America, I don't know if it was the same in the UK, but in North America in the later part of the 80s, there was something called Satanic Panic.
Oh yeah,
which was Geraldo Rivera kind of started it, which was this whole like heavy metal music is like, and like D&D is your kids are into satanic cults and they're murdering people and stuff like that. It was just sensationalist bullshit, but it was hilarious, especially now when you look back at it. It's just totally pure comedy. So I sampled a lot of old television shows from the sort of the later 80s and just sort of had a lot of fun with that. And then did our fourth album, the All Night Starlight Electronic Cafe, and that was just sort of another straight up synth pop album. And I sort of had a falling out with the synthwave deal, and I just wasn't interested in trying to be a part of that scene anymore. It had changed and become something different. So I decided, let's do the new wave thing for a little bit. I've been playing bass guitar since I was like 10 years old, so it's been a long time, and I haven't played bass in a band for quite some time, so I figured, what the hell, let's get it going. And I actually went back and revisited some of the songs off of the last number of albums and rewrote them to have live bass guitar and guitar as well, to make them a little bit more energetic and sort of up to speed with what I'm doing now. And that's what our set is mostly consists of at the moment, is that. Ironically, our guitar player couldn't make it. We got a local guy named Ads to play guitar for the two covers. We do two covers in the set, but the rest of it's tracked guitar, which is, it is what it is, right? But I find it sort of ironic that as much as I try to force the band towards being a little bit more organic, of like a rock-oriented band, I still end up having to, play a show with tracked guitars playing in our backing tracks. It's just, you can't escape the electronic musician. You can't. Like, it's not what I started doing when I was young. I was, a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan and that kind of stuff. And but then I discovered Bauhaus and the whole world changed. Yeah. And then Skinny Puppy, Nine Inch Nails, and all of that stuff. And I was like, whoa, this stuff is great. And it still is great, but there's so much more out there as well.
Yeah, of course. And you've mentioned that your guitar player there couldn't make it, so did you have any troubles in getting over here?
No. It's pretty easy. I'm Canadian, my keyboard player's from the US, but our guitar player is he's from Edmonton, Alberta, which is also in Canada. It's pretty easy for Canadians to come over to the UK and play shows and do things. You still have to do the visa process, but it's not it's not even, it's difficult like getting visas to play in the US, and we're attached to the US. So it's nice when it is a fairly effortless exchange. Not a lot of bureaucracy. Like I had to wait for about half an hour at the airport at customs.
Oh, nice.
So that's not too bad. And it was pretty similar for Eric, the keyboard player coming from San Francisco. It's just it was a lot longer of a trip. So he's still pretty wiped out.
Right. And going back to what you said about how sort of you get into one genre of music and then you kind of get a little bit burnt out, move on to something else. Essentially, if that's kind of what I'm...
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
So what's the most important thing about making music for you? What is the driving force to make you keep doing it?
Now, at 42 years old, it is that it's basically, aside from my dog, it's the one like true happy thing that I have in life that is, it's never ending. Being a musician has no end. You never become 100% at anything. There's always room to learn new things and adapt new styles and add new things, and that kind of, I believe in a world where where people are having cognitive issues as they get older, like Alzheimer's, dementia, and a lot of that kind of stuff, that having something that keeps your brain working on a fulfilling level, not like some job where you're an accountant and you have to think about numbers and stuff all day, and you just you get home and you're so tired you can't do anything that you enjoy. Music to me is something that, it has its ups and downs. There's been times where being involved in it have caused me nothing but stress, but that's not the music itself, that's the bullshit around it. Like money, playing shows, things not working out, that kind of stuff. And those things are like a byproduct to being a creative musician in the first place, or creative in general. And so just to be able to continually fulfill essentially like my spirit, right? It's a very, very fulfilling thing. There's a never-ending stream of things that I can learn. There's, never-ending styles that I can combine, and just, it's always interesting and it's always new. It can always be new and interesting very quickly, And the older you get, or the longer you play instruments for, the more proficient you become at them, and that also sort of eliminates or shortens your sort of like learning curve, or like the amount of time it goes from inspiration to actually being able to make something. You're always growing and getting better at everything you do. So at this point, like I can sit down at my studio, turn everything on, and crank out a functional song very quickly. And that's a very fulfilling and calming thing to do in an otherwise torrentially and stressful life. The last 2.5 years now have been horribly stressful for everybody, but especially in North America. I believe too in the UK as well, that the entertainment industry was like the first one to get, like, you're doing nothing, you're playing no shows, you're not going to anything, and it's still slowly in a lot of places sort of coming back, like, oh yeah, you guys can do your festivals again now, and you can go. Meanwhile, bars and crap have all been open,
same here.
And you feel that, like, well, we're important to your lives as creative artists, but you sure go out of your way to make us feel like we're not, by being like, oh, we'll get to you eventually, right? So that's why with being a creative person in any of the art forms that are out there, being able to do those things without relying upon being able to play it live or go out and deliver it to people in some sort of performance is sort of the only thing that's really kept a lot of people doing it, right? Because if you based it entirely upon how little of a shit most of the world gives about you as an individual, as a creative artist, you'll just not do it. You just be like, this is terrible. Like, why would I ever do this? It's like, just taking money out of your pocket and flushing it down the toilet, But so it has to be fulfilling on an individual, personal level.
Yeah, of course.
But I mean, performing is awesome. So there's also that. So I'm glad that I'm here, doing this. First time to the UK.
Oh, okay.
I don't find it really all that different from Canada, to be honest. I grew up in an area where it's rife with Scottish, English, and Irish families that came over to work in the shipyards in the area that from where I'm from, and grew up with a lot of people. Like my dad's side of the family's from Scotland, and my mom's side of the family's from Ireland, and there's like Welsh and English and everything thrown in the mix. So the accents aren't really all that tough to decipher. I feel like people from the U.S. have a little bit harder of a time with it, but
Yeah.
But I mean, in Canada, we also have like the people from the East Coast, like Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland, and places, and most of them are still like pretty Irish and Scottish in terms of the accents that they have. So we know that when they're talking and they don't make any sense, that it's not just that you can't understand the accent, it's that they're not making any sense. They're just saying words in some random order, and they hope that you understand what they're trying to say, and it's just, it's like, yeah, sure, okay. The best thing ever is a Newfie term, because people from Newfoundland are called Newfies, is stay where you are till I comes where you to, which means wait for me there, I'll be there in a minute, or something like that, right? It's like, but that doesn't make any sense. The first part, stay where you are, that you could just leave that there and say stay where you are, but then they say till I comes where you to. It's like, well, part of that's correct, but I can't believe you got it that wrong. And it's become like a thing that you say all the time. Or like two times twice, which is more of a French Canadian thing. Side by each. Like, just, God, guys, just stop talking. Like, I love my Newfoundland countrymen, so yeah.
Someone had a very specific question for you, Peter. How many bonsais do you own?
I actually own 2.
Good.
And the name of the band came from this plant, this ornamental plant that I found. In my old band, Defense Mechanism, we were like an electro-industrial band in the sort of mid-2000s. And we played a show in Hamilton, Ontario, which is about 30 minutes away from where I live. And it's steel town there. It's like Stelco Steel Mill. It's like real factory town. And we were playing at this place called Club Diablo or something like that. Something that felt pretentious, And we parked in the back, and they had some apartments above the place, and there's like a stoop and then a sort of a fire escape staircase, metal staircase. When we were loading out after the show, there was all this random stuff on the stoop that wasn't there when we were loading in. There's like an old Akai reel-to-reel machine, which I have still. A snare drum filled with rice, a hi-hat stand where the top of it was bent like 90 degrees, and this like 45-pound ornamental bonsai, like fake bonsai, with glass leaves and fruit on it, which I at the time thought were apples. Turns out they're supposed to be peaches, because they do bonsai peach trees. But I thought, well, it's like some sort of glass apple bonsai tree. And I was like, wait a minute, that sounds really cool, right? And I still have that thing. I've moved it probably 10 times, the number of times that I've moved to different places. And I really don't ever want to move it again. So I'm considering maybe auctioning it off to a fan or something. Like, you deal with this thing. It weighs way too much. It's just, it doesn't look good on anything. We put it on the dining room table, and you can't. It's just big enough that you have to look around to put it on top of something, and it just it always feels like it's gonna fall off. Like it could kill you if it fell on you. So, but I do actually have a couple of real smaller bonsai plants that I got from a man that lived close to where my mom used to live, and he's like an award-winning bonsai grower, and he has them all sort of out in front of his house. And I was wearing my jacket that has my own band name patched on the back, and he's like, "Oh, are you into bonsais?" And I was just like, I didn't want to explain to him that it's like a goofy band name, but I was like, yes I am. And so he gave me a couple of them.
Okay.
And so I do own 2.
Nice.
Yeah, and the big fake one. So there you go.
Awesome.
Peter, if that is your real name. Is it the Peter that's around here Or is it just
It's one of them.
One of them?
I'll
Yeah.
introduce you to him.
Okay.
And if you could collaborate with one artist, who would it be?
Well, I'd say Panic Priest, if you're familiar with him. He's from Chicago. But I did just collaborate with him, so I guess that's checked off already.
Oh, okay.
We did a cover of Self-Control, which was made popular by Laura Branigan, but it was originally an Italo artist named Raph who did the song. And I did all the programming for him, because I'm kind of the 80s guy, right? A lot of people be like, hey, I'm trying to do this cover of this song, and I can't get the drums right. I'm like, don't worry, I got you. It's probably a Lindrum, which I have an extensive sample library of Lindrum sounds, and I actually used to own a Lindrum machine, an LM2, for a little while, so I know how they work. And so in that sense, anybody? I don't know. That's a tough one, because I kind of like to do collabs with everybody. Well, anybody that like I listen to. Okay, I'll say this. Men Without Hats, who are known for, like Safety Dance and Pop Goes the World. They're from Montreal, which is in Quebec. And they were a quintessential synth pop band. Them, Trans-X, who did Living on Video, he's from Montreal as well, and Rational Youth they're all from Montreal. Was pumping out like really good early synth pop in the late 70s and the early 80s. And Vancouver as well had bands like Images in Vogue and Mauve and all sorts of these other bands. And for years, I've wanted to do a song and have Ivan Doroshuk, the singer of Men Without Hats, to sing on it. And I probably will eventually get it to happen. I just have to find out how much he wants and if he's available at the time. So because that's the one I'm sort of always sort of working on, that's the one I'd like to do that one first before thinking about who I want to collab with later. Yeah.
I mean, if I ever got round to learning how to make music, I've always wanted to do an industrial version of Safety Dance.
There's actually surprisingly not that many that you'd think that something like that, because it's just a straightforward 4-on-the-floor beat. You'd think that a lot of stompy sort of aggro tech bands and stuff too would do that, but no, I think people just feel like it's kind of a little untouchable.
It's great how it is.
Yeah, it's just the right amount of cheesy as hell, but also really cool at the same time. So, yeah.
Okay, and being at a festival today, Infest, do you have any survival tips for festivals, be it as a crowd goer or as a band member?
Sleep when you're tired. Don't be an asshole. It's not just like that I'm in my 40s and I was sick for a while kind of thing. It's if you want to keep doing the festival circuit for as long as possible, you need to realize that the partying hard stuff is dumb. It will guarantee that by the time you get to a certain age, you just can't handle it. So pace yourself. I'm not saying don't drink or don't do drugs or whatever. I'm just saying that be aware of what your limits are and don't push them. And if you're tired, have a nap. Do it. Eat properly if you can, right? That's also for any musician that tours or whatever. Eat properly and you'll feel better, you'll function better, and you'll be able to do it for longer.
True.
I learned this a little late in the game, but I really didn't start touring big-ish tours until I was in my 30s, which I think is a good thing, because I had more of a sort of wherewithal to not be like, and I've never been a drinker. I don't drink alcohol, and the only drugs I do now is like capital amounts of marijuana, because in Canada it's legal to smoke and buy and smoke marijuana.
Good.
So there we go. So don't be an asshole to yourself. Take care of yourself, and you'll be able to do this for a long time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and now, so as some of you may have already seen with some of our interviews, for Infest we're doing a silly and a sensible. So you can either pick one of each or two of one.
We'll do one silly and one sensible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pick one. Like, do I read them out to myself?
I'll read them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, there's two there. That's how sensible I am.
Okay, so if you weren't already an established artist, what world famous band would you want to be in?
Good question. Now, is this like pure fantasy or like someone that age-wise I would actually like realistically been able to be in?
Anything you want.
I would like to play keyboards in Tears for Fears. And even though I'm not a keyboard player natively, it's something that I ended up doing later. I just love Tears for Fears so fucking much. And Kurt Smith plays bass, so I can't play bass in the band, right? So I would just love to tour with them and get to play some of what I consider to be the greatest songs ever written, like every night. I think that'd be rad. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what is the absolutely worst name someone could give a child?
Okay, so there's this, I don't know if it's 100% true, but there's this sort of like meme going around about like what Americans name their kids these days. And some of them are pretty bonkers. And the one is, the name was spelt L-A-A. And the name was pronounced Ladasha. And I think that if that's true, that person's an idiot. If it's not true, it soon will be, because there's so many idiots that someone will see that and be like, that's a cool idea. Let's name our kid Ladasha. Because like, they're not going to hate you for that later, you know? Inventive names are cool. I know lots of people that have like different names, especially if they're from different cultures and they sort of hybridize things or whatever. You know, I have a lot of friends that have like a normal sort of white bread first name, but their last name is like Wong or, you know, or something, because that was definitely popular for a while, where you'd be like Adam Wong, you know, and yeah, it's, I don't mind people being inventive, but I think you have to think about the kid.
Yeah.
And how just annoying that would be to that be your name. You'd have to explain it to every single person you meet for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what answer I was expecting, but Ladasha is certainly
Yeah, like
up
that's,
there.
you know, and see things like Kaylin, but they're spelt with way too many letters. You know, it's just like stop, just stop, right? You're not impressing anyone. You're just, your kid's gonna write a tell-all book about you later in life called "What the Fuck, Mom," you know, and by like Kaylin Ladasha Smith, right? So they have a normal as hell last name, but their first and middle names are like just a franken-fuck of idiocy.
All right, well.
But you can do whatever you want. Right? You want to name your kids stupid things, go right ahead. But if they come back at you and murder you in your sleep when they're a teenager, that you brought that on yourself.
Well, as me and my best friends say, you do you, just not that.
Yeah, just not that yet. Yeah. Like I always say, you can do whatever you want. You can dress however you want. Like I'm actually pretty cool with a lot of people dressing pretty ridiculous and stuff like that. But that doesn't stop the fact that you look like a fucking douchebag when you dress like I see people getting like bowl cuts, you know, and they're like, yeah, it's a new style. So first off, it's not a new style. It's what a lot of kids had in the 70s and early 80s. Like I had a bowl cut when I was like 4 in the early 80s. And you look at pictures back then and you're like, Mom, why did you do that to us? Like it never looked cool, right? But this whole like, let's do these like ironic, like nostalgic things and be like, this is cool because it's edgy. It's like, no, it's dumb. It's dumb. But you can do it, right? And I'm not really gonna judge you as a person, but you do look stupid.
Right.
But I also look stupid too half the time, so whatever, you know.
And lastly, anything to say to your fans?
Well, considering the fact that I just, in the last 2 days, have found out that I have way more fans in the UK than I ever thought I did. It's the separation from it makes it really hard to gauge how many people have actually heard any of the Glass Apple Bonzai stuff. But in the last 2 days since I've been here, it's just nonstop. People super excited to see us, and you know, like, oh, I listened to your album In the Dark over and over again. It's like you really start to realize how, and I'm a big purveyor of this too, is that music does reach everybody, especially now. A lot of people complain about the way that digital downloading and streaming is, but remember, at one point, The only way you were ever going to get your music to people in foreign countries like that you're not from was to pay a lot of money to have somebody distribute it and promote it over there. And you don't really need to do that anymore, not on that level, because we have things like Bandcamp, which technically reaches everyone in the world who has access to a computer or at least a phone. So with that in mind, keep being fans and keep asking people to bring me over here, right? And I'll keep coming. Like, that's the thing. I'll keep coming over. I'll come over to the UK whenever at this point. I haven't even performed yet today, and I'm already like 100%. If they ask me to like come back next year or play some other festival in the UK, I'm on board 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Daniel.
Well, thank you, Canis.
And thank you for watching.